afternoon, everyone. I am Parth from Batch 19, a part of Proteus, the biology club of Pfizer TVM. We are extremely delighted to have everyone here for the first Student Talk series. The first speaker in this series is my lab mentor and guide, Siddhartha Yadanapudi. Siddhartha has tons of experience from working under Dr. Jishi, where he completed his major project, to other summer projects at Harvard Medical School, Osaka University, and even IISER Mohali. Everyone might recognize him from the frequent quizzes and debates held at campus or even the football field. I request everyone on the meet to please mute yourselves, and to all those present on YouTube, please enter your questions in chat and one of us would present them to the speaker at the end, where we would be having a short interaction session. Thank you, and over to you, Siddhartha.
Hi, should I turn on my camera? I guess I will. I have no visual aids per se, so you can all just look at my face if you're so inclined. So thank you for that introduction, Abhishek. I don't have much of a structured talk present today, so if there are any short questions or clarifications anyone wants to ask at any point, please go ahead and ask. You can interrupt me during the thing itself. If there are things which will require a longer answer, then as Abhishek said, maybe we can hold them back till the end. So to start off, I'll start with how I got to IISER. Actually, I'll start a year before that, which is 2014-15, where I studied at Sri Venkateswara College in New Delhi for a while, in DU. I studied there for 1 year. I did zoology, and then I got the KVPY fellowship, and so I jumped to IISER Trivandrum. I actually applied for IISER Mohali first, obviously, since my home is in Chandigarh, so Mohali being nearby, I thought it'll make the most sense. Mohali, Pune, and then with the others, and I got Trivandrum, and for a while I was quite considering whether to float and try to get Mohali, but then I thought, screw it, let's go to Trivandrum, let's experience something different. And I can say that I did not regret it at all. I'm definitely glad that I came here. Obviously, the experience that you have in a college which is a part of DU, which has a vast variety of fields in which people are studying, and in an institute like IISER, which has a fairly narrow science focus, is very different. But so there are things that I experienced in Delhi that I would not have not experienced here, and I would not have got a chance to, talking to people who are doing Hindi literature or pol science and so on and so forth. While here, the intimate contact with researchers and with research itself is not something that I would have found as easy to obtain in Delhi. But one major disadvantage of that year in Delhi was that the students were less than motivated, let's say. A lot of people in especially these biology fields, the zoology and botany, which shared a lot of courses, were highly unmotivated, to say the least. And I kind of gained some amount of cynicism about the whole education process, which unfortunately I also carried over into my first couple of years in IISER. And I can say that while most undergrads who arrive at IISER are extremely enthusiastic in their first and second years, I was rather cynical and detached from the entire IISER experience for a good part of my first 2 years. What added to this was the enormous class sizes that you have in your first 2 years. They're not entirely as conducive to learning because there is a large gap between teacher and student. You have barely any personalized attention. However, obviously there's some really good courses in our first 2 years, the ecology, all the biology courses are pretty good, I believe. The Dr. Anil Shahji's physics course is fantastic. Professor Vinesh Vijayan's chemistry course, quantum chemistry, which just screws with your mind so much. Uh, but it was an enjoyable experience, and honestly, when I got to ISER, it was like the biggest shock you experience is seeing so many people who are as smart or smarter than you. It is not something that, like, I'm sure everyone has had this experience, and like multiple people have already hammered this into our heads. But at an elite institution, you do have a huge number of people who are supremely talented at whatever they do. And like when you talk to them, you feel like you know absolutely nothing. And this initial encounter with imposter syndrome is interesting because like this is not something that goes away as you progress through science. Like you keep thinking that you're an imposter throughout, like however good or not you actually are, you still think that you know nothing. Or actually there is the undergrad experience at ISER has like two flip sides, which are one is just seeing all these brilliant people and thinking you know nothing, and the second is like learning a little bit of something and thinking that you know a lot, and then trying to, I don't know how to put this, hold on, let me think about this. So I don't know if you've heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which says that uh, people who are stupid don't know that they are stupid. This is not exactly that, but this might be a cousin of that, in that people who are just starting to learn a subject think that they know a vast amount of the subject. And that often like happens to undergrads. Like it happened to me for sure, and it hit me hard in my second year. And so, like I've been coasting through all the biology courses in the first year, and then in the second year I suddenly realized that there was so much stuff going on that I had no idea about, and I had just like not been paying attention to. But yeah, so that those couple of things are strange, and yet they somehow coexist within the same person very often. Mm, One thing that I really enjoyed about ISER was like how close you were to researchers and to scientists, and you have so many kids in ISER right now who are joining labs in their second years and their first years, and I must say that's like impressive to see, especially considering that there were much fewer of my batch students who joined labs that early. Of course, the one problem with this is that students often get attached to one lab, and even in summers and winters when most students used to try to look for projects outside of ISER, I have noticed that a ton of kids are tending to stay within ISER. And while this is great, it's an as I mentioned before, one of the elite institutions, for whatever that means. It's a great research environment, but it is important to have experiences outside of this one small closed system that we are all present in. Now, as I mentioned, I came into ISER rather cynical and detached, and it was fairly easy for me to coast through the first couple of years, at least in biology, because uh, many of the kids who were in my batch hadn't taken biology, so it was fairly easy to get at least above average. So that means an A easily. However, in my third year, well, we got into our majors and IPHDs joined, and classes actually became a lot more interesting. And I was unable to shake this whole demeanor of like detachment and disinterestedness in general that I had. And one thing that really shook me up and like woke me from the stupor was a talk with that a small chat that Dr. Murthy had with me. At the end of my third year, I was having like some attendance issues in his class because I used to oversleep, and then come to class late or not at all. So I went to him and said, "Sir, I want to talk to you about my attendance." He said, "I've been meaning to talk to you. Come to my office." And I thought, "Oh well, I'm in for good tongue lashing." And he sat me down and talked to me and basically told me that I was underperforming severely and not living up to my potential, and I could do so much more if instead of sleeping in class and sleepwalking through my life at ISER, I woke up and actually started caring about what I'm doing. And for that, I shall be eternally grateful, because he really made me realize that I have something to contribute, and I can. There are things I'm passionate about, and I have been neglecting them for a good 2.5 years. And so because of that, I managed to wake up and started paying attention to what I was doing, and I applied to for various internships, and I managed to do well in them. Before that, in my first year, I had done an internship in ISER Mohali in a Drosophila lab. That was fairly productive and very useful, and it's because of that in the end that I returned to Drosophila for my major project and my upcoming PhD, hopefully, if everything falls in the right places. But in my second year, I had worked in the ecology lab at ISER Trivandrum itself, and I had given a substandard performance, to say the least. Again, I had kind of lapsed into disinterestedness, and that did not end particularly well for me, and I am afraid I must not have given a great impression to the lab either. But after that, again, as I mentioned, Dr. Murthy really woke me up. And this is important for everybody, I think. It's that even though the first 2 years are can be rather dull, especially because you have to take courses of various subjects you might not at all be interested in. I hate chemistry personally, but it's worth it, because a lot of the times you realize that there are so many things that you are interested in and which might not be related to your main subject. I realized late on in my second year that I was extremely fond of maths, but by that time I had lost so much ground in not paying attention to 1.5 years of mathematics that there was no realistic way that I could take maths as a minor. So I took physics instead, and while I'm happy enough with that decision, I really wish I could have taken maths, because I enjoy math a lot, but missed opportunities and so on. So okay, now there is one thing that happens every year which has not been able to happen this year. Well, actually, obviously there's many things, but the specific thing I'm talking about is that at the end of our 5th year, the 5th year students sit down with their respective, schools, 4th year students, and give them a rough guide on what to do and what not to do when applying for PhDs. While obviously PhDs are not for everybody, it's a rather daunting task to have to figure out among hundreds and thousands of schools which one is correct for you, how do you apply to that, and so on and so forth. So I think I'll just give a brief outline about that, and then any questions are you're welcome to ask me later, or to text me or mail me or whatever, or any of your seniors. But one of the interesting things that has happened in biology recently as in over the last 5-6 years, is that more and more schools in the US have decided to drop the GRE altogether as a requirement for biology. One of the there's a spreadsheet which compiles all these documents, which compiles all these schools. That's maintained by a professor at UNC. I think I shared the link with some 4th year students as well as some 3rd year students. So I mean, it's a very useful document to have, especially if you really don't want to go through the hassle of the GRE. If you have schools which you are interested in, then it's good to look through that document and see what if they require the GRE or not, because the GRE is a substantial expense. The TOEFL is an inconvenience that unfortunately has to be taken because the white people don't think brown people can speak English. So unfortunately, we do have to undertake that test. But the GRE subject test has almost nobody at all ask for that, while the GRE, the main GRE itself, fewer and fewer schools begin to ask for that. In addition, there is of course various tests within India itself, like CSIR, the NET, and so on and so forth. Those are valid for 2 years, so it's very useful to apply for those during your fourth year, and if possible, you can qualify during your fourth year itself, and then you won't have yet another test to give during your fifth year. Now, for applications themselves, what you would want to do is to have a clear idea of which colleges or universities you want to apply by the start of your fifth year, by October, or like latest by the end of October. You should either you have to figure out in Europe which professors and who all you want to talk to, and you can start some interaction with them personally, or with programs in both the US and Europe. Ideally, you should be looking for places which have not just one, but like 2 or 3 professors with whom you would be okay with working at least. You'd be satisfied with working in that field. The thing is that PhDs, as well as major thesis and minor thesis, they're not a one-way street, in that it's not that the professor is employing you. You are also contributing solid work to the professor's lab. So there has to be a conversation about what you want from the professor and what the professor wants from you, which should be clearly agreed upon before you and the professor commit to undertaking a major project or a PhD together. Other than that, this is such a vast topic that it's just so hard for one person to do. But yeah, SOPs and CVs are important, of course, and always you should get these reviewed by either a friend, a trusted friend, or if you're familiar enough with some faculty, then that will be the ultimate, cross-reference. The ultimate person to get it, to run it through, because they would know much more about what employers look for in CVs and SOPs. It's best to have a CV which you're just constantly updating. Just have it on your computer somewhere or on the cloud. In SOP, it's personally I found it best to have like one extremely large document with everything that I would like to be known about my research experience, personal life, blah blah blah. And then you can chop and change that as is required by individual universities' applications. But the important thing to remember is that there's going to be a lot of rejections that you will get, and despite that, you gotta persevere. There's nothing else to do. There's 2 things that my seniors have told me. One, Kushal told me a year or so back, almost exactly a year back. He told me that you have to apply in the same manner that insects lay eggs. You throw out 1,000,000 of them and hope a couple stick, and that's what you got to do. And the second is something that multiple seniors have told me, which is that everybody in their batch who really wanted to do a PhD and really tried to get one, got one. So just be assured that it's not as impossible to do as it sounds like, and all of you, if you have gotten to ICER, are good enough to get to land a PhD placement somewhere. Okay, I really don't have much more else to say. I'd like to like plug the two activities that I feel are important to me at ICER, which is QSI and ESI, the Quiz Society and the Ecological Society, both of which have been doing a lot of fun, entertaining, and good stuff over the last few years. And hopefully, you all will please carry on the legacies of QSI, especially. ESI, I know, has a lot of people heavily involved in it already. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Siddhartha. I guess we'll move on to questions. If there are any questions, please unmute yourself, and I hope we can carry on with the interaction session.
I have a question. Uh, can you tell me how you started the process of searching for whichever school or lab you were
Yeah.
interested in?
Right. So, like, I mean, the easiest thing to do is you just look at, big new papers that have come out in the field, and you look at who all has been working on this field, and you look at the references within them, and most importantly, you look at people in ICER who are doing stuff along similar lines, and you ask them what professors are working in this field. And often the, your professors can be extremely helpful, and they are like, as long as you have the what do you call it, as long as you approach them, they can be very helpful, but they won't know what you want until you ask them. So it's, yeah, that's the most important thing. Like, you ask around, not just profs. You can ask PhDs who are working in that field. Other than that, I think papers and whatnot are the best like way to see what's going on in the field, and where active research is happening.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey Siddhartha, I would like to ask something. Thanks for the talk, by the way.
Yes,
Uh,
Anjit.
so what I wanted to ask was, you went for a couple of internships. Uh, how closely were they related to what you're finally going to do, or what you finally did in your major project, and what you have applied to for your PhD?
All right. So I'll just go through all four of them. My first year internship was my introduction to Drosophila. So I'll just make this clear. I'm working in Drosophila. I worked for my major project. I worked on Drosophila metabolism loosely. My PhD, I intend to work on Drosophila as well, though like the exact field is yet to be determined, rotation and whatnot. That's a separate matter. Anyway, my first year internship was on Drosophila in ICER Mohali. That was fairly, brief and introductory because it's a first year internship. What more do you expect? But I got a very healthy interest and appreciation for Drosophila and for developmental biology. My second year project was in ecology, which was completely unrelated. However, I thought that initially I came into ICER thinking I wanted to do ecology. However, I realized it's not really for me. Like, I'm fond of ecology still. I enjoy listening to people talk about it. I kept popping over to the ecology lab throughout my major project. It helped that it was next door. But I realized that it's not right for me, and so I dropped it after that. Although perhaps I should have done better during the project itself, but that's again another matter. The third year internship was on cell biology in yeast, which is completely unrelated to what I'm currently doing. Again, I was at that point, I was mostly like trying to figure out what I want to do. And while I enjoyed that internship, and I like that field, it just turns out that developmental biology is much more interesting to me. And my fourth year project was fairly closely related to my major project, as in it was also about metabolism and it was also in the same model organism. So yeah, it's healthy enough to do internships in various different fields. You don't need to stick to your one field. You can explore a bit. There's plenty of time. Slightly less time because of the pandemic, but still, I think a good amount of time.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question.
Yeah, hi.
Because of this pandemic situation, most of the second year pass outs did not get an opportunity to attend to do an internship this time. And also last year, like for myself, like I did only one internship. In the
Yeah.
first, I did not do anything because I was yet to figure out which subject to move into.
Mhm.
And the internship I did was in chemistry, but I'm bio major, so just figuring out what side. And now that I have figured and just before this lab, I had joined Reggie Varghese' lab, who works on nanoparticle DNA. So, like, how much of an effect does it put, like, doing, like, because of this pandemic situation?
Long term, not much really. See, there's two things. One is that you're in your second year, right? So you still have your like post third year internship. You still have
Currently,
you finish your second.
yes.
Alright. Nevertheless, you have like a good time still left. You have your third year and your the summer after your third year and the summer after your fourth year. You still have, right? There's plenty of time. Internships are mostly important in getting a feel of what you like and what you don't like, right? And it allows you to do something outside of ICER, which is a useful environment to like. It's useful to be in a non-ICER environment also. As for like working in different fields, that's fine. Like it just shows that you can work in various fields, right? It's not necessarily a disadvantage. There's plenty of people in my batch and senior batches who have worked across various fields before settling on what they're doing. It's fine. It doesn't matter that much. As for the pandemic, I would like to think that in general, academia is thoughtful enough to understand that like literally the whole world was affected by this, and that it's like the whole world has been left behind. The whole world has skipped the summer, so it's not going to be you alone. Like if it's your batch who is applying, then everyone of your age group who's applying for PhDs when you are applying will also have missed a year due to this pandemic. It evens out really. It's inconvenient and frustrating, but we'll get through this and it will eventually, I think, work out to normal. I don't think it should have a massive disrupting effect, except you lose a little bit of that freedom you get to explore something which you may not encounter in ICER.
Okay, because I don't think so. Like after a third year summer, we will get a chance to go outside ICER because our labs are still pending. So that will also affect the internship outside which we do.
Right. Okay. I don't know. I wasn't aware of that. I don't know. Honestly, our institute has become friendlier towards doing internships outside. If I'm right, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't been following institute news for a while. But from what I can tell, the director is pro students doing internships like outside. So I'm sure they will make arrangements for such stuff, or at least if you guys go up and convince him that it is necessary, I'm sure he can be convinced that it is so.
Hi, I have a question.
Hey.
So, what exactly was your minor project on, and is that relevant to what you're going to do?
No, my minor project was on nanoparticle deposition. It's entirely unrelated to what I was going to do. Honestly, in ICER, between physics and biology, there are not many intersections. Dr. Anil Shahji's group does some things with which is like entirely above my head, but it ties in vaguely to biology. But that was like way too theoretical and way too far above my head for me to like genuinely figure out any way I could do it. There was not much in physics I could figure out that had any direct linkage to biology. But again, working in a laboratory that's not a biological laboratory gives you a new way of looking at things, right? Like to properly think of biology, you have to frame everything in a certain concept, in certain concepts, right? Like while if you're looking at physics or mathematics, you have to approach things in an entirely different manner. I hope I'm making some sense, right?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's useful to gain some perspective on like non-biological ways of thinking. It's fairly helpful in some ways, but directly, no. My project did not have anything to do with my major project.
Okay, so like I guess my actual question was like, how much does a minor project actually matter in like the bigger scheme of things?
Okay. What do you mean by bigger scale?
As in, you said that you worked on a minor project that doesn't have much to do with what you're going to do in the future.
Yeah.
But it did teach you some sort of perspective and techniques of looking at things in a different way.
Yeah.
So if I choose to abandon a minor project altogether and just take elective, would it,
it really depends, right? See, courses as well as projects and labs give you back only as much effort, as much reward as you put effort into them. There are some courses which I'm sure will be much more rewarding than if you do a mediocre minor project, and vice versa. So it's entirely fine to do just courses and like not take a minor project if you feel that it's not really necessary. There's a couple of people in my batch who have done that, and they seem fairly happy and satisfied with their decisions. They took a few maths courses and they took a few chemistry courses, and they were pretty happy with that. Like the math courses really took them like really hard to do, but that's because math is hard and not because like they were bad at math or anything. But they gained a lot out of it, and now they have a good mathematical conception of as well. So no, so overall, no, not really. It really depends on what you, how much effort you put in. It's not necessary that a minor project will have more value than giving courses. If you're looking at it from a like applications or PhD point of view or something, then if you have done a minor project in say a specific in say organic chemistry and that is tangentially related to your project, you can always bring that up. If in your cover letter or your CV or whatever, if you have done courses which would be useful in your whichever field you're applying to for your PhD, you can also bring that up. So I don't think it's that much of a difference if you have a minor degree in so and so, as long as you have evidence that you have taken courses which are relevant.
Okay, thank you.
One question. What would you say to someone in their first or second year who's really anxious about their grades?
Grades. Well, grades are not really that important at all. So at the end of our second year, or I don't know, third or fourth semester, Professor Kalika gave us like he spent a whole lecture in which he told us exactly how unimportant grades are. That it was like long and elaborate and very descriptive. I cannot replicate that. But I will tell you that grades are essentially not important for PhD applications. It doesn't matter. As long as you have a, a reasonably good grade, like 7.5 or so, that's good enough. As long as you have some intent that you're showing, as long as you're showing genuine intent, that's good enough. What grades are kind of important for are certain internships and fellowships that you might apply for in your third and fourth year. The IAS, actually, I don't know if that has a grade requirement, but they do take your grade into consideration. A lot of foreign fellowships require a certain grade point. I think 8.5 is the maximum that is required. That's by DAAD, which you need if you want to apply to Germany. Others have, I think, slightly laxer requirements, something like 8.0. But if you are okay with not getting those like high international fellowships, then if you have a grade above 7.5, you shouldn't be too concerned about it. Grades are not worth fighting over, and like just don't waste your time bothering too much about grades. As long as you're satisfied that you're learning and you're not doing absolutely abysmally, it'll be fine.
Okay, thank you.
When we talk about fellowships,
Yeah.
I would like to have some insight on how you came about, going forward with choosing the fellowship, or like how did you apply for it?
Well, I mean, there's only well I qualified for the Khurana Fellowship in after my fourth year, and I applied to it because I could, I had a grade point average which was 8.02 or 8.08, and 8 was the like cutoff. You had to have above 8, so I thought I will apply for it, and I applied and I got it. Like there was not much of a choice I had, like which fellowship I can apply to. I could apply for one, and I applied for it, and luckily I got it. But there's a handful of fellowships which are like fairly well regarded. One is the Khurana or the Bose if you're math physics. There is DAAD, which takes you to Germany. Charpak in France. I think Swissnex has one for Switzerland. I believe ICER is doing something with Australia, but I'm not entirely sure. There's MyTax in Canada. All of these are well worth the time and effort you need to apply to them. If you can get them, it's like definitely worth going for them. In addition, applying for these is also a good like rehearsal, so to speak, for your PhD applications, because you'll essentially be doing similar stuff for the PhDs, although that is more terrifying because it's your entire 5 years ahead, or like 3 years ahead rather than a summer. But yeah, I'm sorry, I think I diverted a bit from the topic. Is there anything else you want me to cover?
I guess we are done. I hope there aren't any other questions. If they are, I hope you will come up with them right now.
Alright, I think then that's us done for today.
Yeah, okay. So thank you, Siddhartha. Thank you, the faculty who attended this talk. Thank you, everyone. Almost 100 of y'all were here, including the Meet and the YouTube. So thank you again, everyone. I hope we can conclude this talk.
Thank you for having me, Abhishek. Thank you, Proteus.